Welcome to WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. Oh, good to be back. Good to be celebrating a holiday with you all. As voted on by the Wicked community, we are going to do a Juneteenth roast. Oh, I'm looking forward to it. How is everybody doing? Wicked Foxy Dragon, delighted to see you. Wireless Mike, hello. Very much excited for this particular one. Hello, hello. Rex Trek, delighted to see you. Well, as you know, it's the Juneteenth roast, so we're gonna look at some pertinent things for the holiday. I have some thoughts on the holiday in general, and we're gonna be roasting folks. Let's start it off with this. Which member, and toss them in the comments, I'll have a look at during the segment and set them aside. Which member of the Trump family, to get us started off, would you like me to roast? It could be the obvious, or you could have some fun with it. I'll take any. So starting it off, Trump family members, who do you want roasted? Now, we have a rather interesting opportunity here. For the first time since, 1983, there's a new federal holiday. We've all agreed we're gonna celebrate this. So the question then becomes, how? Now, truth be told, I've seen a whole lot of sad sack stuff. I've seen a whole lot of things where people are saying, well, it wasn't happy circumstances that brought about this holiday, and that's true. On the other hand, let me tell you what an atheist household looks like during the wintertime. Really, you have dealer's choice. If you're not affiliated with a particular religion, but there's a bunch of time off available, it's on the table there, you're going to pick a holiday and have some fun. Why not? Basically every atheist household chooses Christmas. Mostly. Why is that? It's the most fun. There's a high degree of concentration of presents. There is not a set amount of presents. And the presents are allowed to be lavish. Plus, there's a tree with lights on it. It's very what do you call it? Kitschy, and kitsch is fun. So, if we want, and I'm just going to toss this out there, if we want Juneteenth to become a widely accepted thing that a lot of people participate in, and therefore end up hearing about the history of, so they know what they're celebrating, I propose to you all that we try to make Juneteenth a fun day. Yes, a fun day about a solemn thing, but, it's got the nickname and accurate description of America's Second Independence Day. That's a good thing, and I think we should hold that up. To that end, we've got some fellas from the Christian Broadcasting Network. I realize I go a little bit hard on the old Christians from time to time. I wanna hold up fans of that fella from Nazareth when they do good stuff too. They did a great segment on Juneteenth. Let's have a quick look. Oof, this is a rough one. There we go.
The day after Father's Day is Juneteenth, the newest federal holiday here in the United States. Well, joining us from our Washington, D.C. studio to explain the holiday's significance is Pastor David Anderson. Dr. Anderson is senior pastor of Bridgeway Community Church and founder and president of Gracism Global, an organization that helps build bridges to racial healing. David, Juneteenth is about the emancipation of slaves in Texas 2 years.
Side note, while I break up this extraordinarily solemn moment, if you see the fly that was with us in the last stream and you think, well, it's been a few days, is this a different fly? I don't think so. I've scooped it out of the house several times, but every time I let the dog out, it comes right back in, and I don't have the guts to confront it directly. So it's part of the stream now, just forever. I assume it's going to outlive us all. Anyway, back to Juneteenth.
After Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. So why should all Americans, not only African Americans, celebrate this day?
Well, Gary, first of all, it's so good to be with you again. And Juneteenth, I'm glad it's a national holiday. It's taken a long time for that to happen. And of course, on the heels of George Floyd being murdered, I think the consciousness of America was finally pricked to say, Black history really matters. And this is a significant part of Black history because it is the last time enslaved Africans could legally be enslaved. So you can only imagine how exciting it would be for anybody who has been in prison or enslaved or had a disease or whatever it may be. In their very last day, they walk away free.
So is Juneteenth the day to remember or lament?
Great question. And we should get to that. Want to pause it to say, speaking of escaping bonds of a sort, I realize it's not quite as bad. Tremendous understatement. But Rextrack, congratulations, man, on the retirement. Congratulations. That is awesome. I hope you have nothing but happy days ahead of you. And if you get bored, remember, you can do absolutely whatever you want. That's fantastic, dude. I'm so proud of you. Well done.
Well, probably a little bit of both, because whenever you look at history, you have to look at not only the sad parts of it, but also the joy that comes from it. And
True.
With our culture, there's a lot of sadness because, Africans were kidnapped and enslaved for hundreds of years. And then they had to fight for, civil rights and all of this for people who look like me, great-grandparents and ancestors. So, yeah, there's a sadness to it. But there's also something powerful about the ability to survive. And the Black family being able to even survive in any measure is an absolute miracle today based on the decimation of the Black family that took place from the transatlantic slave trade, and then
An underappreciated point. Well done.
Slavery, chattel slavery on the soil of our own country, where.
So, one thing to look out for in all of this generation, by which I just mean the people alive on Earth at the same time, everybody who's able to be conscious right now, we're going to be the ones that start the Juneteenth traditions. Now, granted, there are already Juneteenth traditions, but whether we intend to or not, the things that we do are going to be the things that our family does and our friends end up doing. So, if we want to put a happy spin on this to celebrate the upside of the day, so I suppose how the day ended rather than how it began, we might want to focus on things like this gentleman is saying. I think he's a pastor. So one thing, spending time with family, celebrating the miracle that, families were able to be, some were able to remain together, some were created, and some were found. But the preservation of the family, there's one thing. So go see your family on Juneteenth and understand why you're doing that. And as the other fella was saying, it's for all to celebrate. We are celebrating Americans being free at the end of the day. And if truly we are going to get past a point of race mattering, then all of us should rejoice. Not just because somebody else, somebody that I don't want to be mean to, their descendants got freed, but because Americans were freed. It was a major strive for Americans. We should all take ownership of that, pride in that. So I think it's appropriate that we don't have to work on that day.
Africans built the country
Yes.
for no fee, for no wage, and oftentimes under very horrendous conditions. So is there
Another idea. Yeah, Africans built this country. So, how do we translate that into a positive celebration? I would suggest have a barbecue this weekend and make an effort. If you can't do it, you can't do it. If there's no one around you, so be it. But make an effort to buy your supplies for that celebration, for that barbecue, etc. Buy them from a black-owned business. Will that make up for slavery? No. Not quite. But it's an acknowledgement. So, okay, Juneteenth, this day, you are going to purchase, whenever you choose to celebrate, you are going to purchase your supplies, if at all possible, from a black-owned business. And hey, we make this a tradition. We start doing this regularly. Guess what? You're going to come across some businesses maybe you haven't come across before. And you're going to start going there maybe regularly because you really like it. Baby steps are still steps.
Is there something to lament? No doubt about it. But is there something to celebrate? Yes. Freedom, survival,
yes.
stick-to-itiveness,
Boom.
unity amidst great
Yes.
horror. And I think that's what our country is all about, reminding people that freedom may not be free, but it really does matter when you experience it.
And David, 158 years later, race and racism is still an issue here in the United States. Why is that?
Sadly, the institutions that have been set forth from the very beginning of the country on the foundational pillars of racism still stand to this day, and practices that many African Americans experience. And so racism is to speak, act, or think negatively about someone else solely based on their color, class, or culture. And so that's a bad thing. And when institutions surround that kind of idea, it can be really, really bad for people. And it had been for so many years. But legally, we've got it right. Now, morally and economically, we have to get it right. And that's what I'm hoping takes place through God's word, through the unity that comes through the brotherhood and the sisterhood of the family of believers, and then also through restitution in a way that we can help lift up the black family.
Okay, some good thoughts. Dr. David Anderson of Gracism Global. Always a pleasure to talk
with you, I imagine he said. Okay. That last part, the unity through the church. Oh, all right, fair enough. If y'all happen to believe the same thing, okay. But also unity through the nation. I'm not real big into borders as a way to divide people. But anything that unifies people, I'm for. Any old excuse to see each other as fellow travelers in a cold universe. Yes, unity through the nation. We are, if you live in America, all Americans. You want to be technical about it? If you live in North or South America, well, I guess we're all also Americans. Any old excuse. The freedom of people is something we should all rejoice in. And I think, yeah, taking the day off work is important on the actual day. And whenever you can get around to having a barbecue, try to buy from a black-owned business. And if you can, try to see your family and try to remind yourself why that is. And as I think I saw Wicked Foxy Dragon pointing out, not exactly like the Revolutionary War was a pleasant time either. So from a lot of horror can come a good thing, or at least we can celebrate, at the very least, the end to the horror. In this case, that is what we are doing. So even though, specifically, Juneteenth is talking about when freedom finally arrived in Galveston, Texas. Not to be confused with when the enslaved were told they were set free. It was a port town. They knew they were supposed to be set free long ago, but when it was finally demanded, insisted upon, and the slaves were freed, that's a good thing. And we should rejoice. Let's start the roast. Rex Trek, America, am I right? Yeah. Rex Trek, I'm shocked how CBN is showing this. Good on them. Yes, indeed. This is literally, I think, the second thing I've seen from them. I don't remember what the first was. But yeah, I think they are of the Mormon style a little bit, where they didn't bring the what do you call it? Bigotry with them. They did good. Christmas is good if you have kids, says Rex Trek. I believe it. Absolutely. Wireless Mike, the whole family, current and exes. Ooh, let's see. Ooh. Hoo, 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 hoo. Oh, that was Wireless Mike. Fair enough, says Wicked Foxy Dragon. It's easy to confuse the two of us. Oh, you scamps. That's fair. Well, I saw a suggestion. Our first roast, Don Jr.'s wife. Fair enough. She reminds me of a pampered poodle. Except that's an insult to poodles, because at least a poodle is good company. Ooh, roasted. Let's put some sauce on it. Don Jr. is like Donald Trump, but somehow dumber. Anybody that would choose to marry Don Jr. is really rolling the dice hard on a generous prenup and a unhealthy father-in-law. So I can't say she's not bright. She just has no soul, and it's saucy. Next up for the roast, dealer's choice. Whatever you guys want, drop a political figure at some point during the next segment. I'll roast them. It might just end up me being quite cruel, but that's part of the fun. I didn't get the salt out this Saturday. It's got to happen. All right, we have... Oh, boy. We have another segment. Hear me out. I think a lot... One thing he said in the last segment was talking about how racism is not just about the color of somebody's skin. In fact, it's important to recognize it's not just about that. It's also about making judgments on people, or really giving yourself permission to be cruel to people based on other things, such as social groups they are in or class. Ultimately, the purpose of racism, the reason we have it in this country, is the same old, and we haven't dealt with it yet. It's economics. Let's talk about that. Well, when we are talking about racism in America, what we ultimately end up needing to talk about first and foremost is economics. We talk very frequently about how a black dollar spends about 20 minutes somewhere in there in the black community. As in, if a black person makes a dollar, they hold on to it for about 20 minutes before it goes into the hands of somebody who is not black. That is not in and of itself nefarious, but it's a sign. It's a sign of design. So, if we're going to solve racism, if we're going to make the lives of black folks better, our best bet is to try our best to make everybody's lives better at the level of economics. Because it's real easy to say, I don't hate black people, but I've never met one. That in and of itself ends up harming you. It's real easy to say, oh, I don't do anything that harms black people because you've never met one. So you don't know what you're doing that's harming black folks. It's even easier to develop some strong opinions about a group of folks you never met. What keeps us separated? There's no really official laws anymore that say, well, these folks have to live here and those folks get to live here and yada, yada, yada. What does it? It's just money. So I have a slightly surprising thing to view on this Juneteenth. Mr. Ari Melber talking about the recent political wave, would it be? Support. Let's just use simple words. The new political support for a reduced work week. I'm excited for it, and I think ultimately having less social stress put on us all is going to result in positive change across the board. Let's have a gander. Oh, this is going to be a long one. What I need to get is the Fallout Please Stand By card. Hey, there we go.
Turning now to our series looking at ideas with an open mind. We assess an idea not by whether we definitely agree with it, but as a novel or different idea that's worth considering with an open mind. Indeed, we think it's worth recalling that throughout history, at any given point, the conventional wisdom about everything from facts and science to rights or equality would later look limited, antiquated, or wrong.
Congress approved the 19th Amendment. The ladies appeared at the polls on Election Day by the hundreds of thousands.
They were ready to march, and they marched.
This march will go down as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, demonstrations for freedom and human dignity.
The president's signing of the Disabled Americans Act. It bars job and other discrimination against the 43 million Americans with disabilities.
There you can see society shifting from barring women's right to vote in one generation to taking it as a shared consensus by the next. And some of it can look clear in hindsight. So what if, right now, we're living by some conventional wisdom that has people in the future someday saying, I can't believe that's how they used to think? Which brings us to something that impacts everyone, how we work, how much we work, and how it shapes everything else from our free time to family time to our health, life expectancy. And we've all heard the question, do we work to live or live to work? As with other issues among democracies, America is an outlier on this, with work rules and a capitalist culture making it live to work. We clock 1,800 hours per year, a number that's been rising for decades, more than places like Japan. 300 hours more than our counterparts in England, even more compared to the work-life balance in Norway.
Just to be clear, there was a huge problem in Japan with business folks offing themselves because they were worked to death. U.S. has that problem too. More specifically, let me relate this to the black community again. Let's take COVID. Way more black folks died as a percentage of the community than white folks. Why? The question was never fully answered. I have a theory. Way more low-wage workers died because they did not have the sort of jobs where they could remote in, or if they could, they didn't have the sort of power in the workplace where they could insist that that's what they do. If you can solve the economic problems, you won't cure racism. But you'll find that you help the community which is targeted by racism. Rather, the communities. The reason being, this is why it exists in our country. To get us working that hard. Look at that. To get us working that hard. What is it? 80 years after we established the 40-hour work week. How much has technology changed since we established the 40-hour work week? And we're still required to do the same amount of work? That's insane. How did they get us to do that? Well, they got about 60% of white folks to think that everybody of a different shade was somehow a danger to them. And so, with that fight going on constantly, they could dupe us into working that hard. Did we get the profit from it at least? No. The bosses did. As always, the bosses took the extra. And so, if we can solve this problem, we're going to make a lot of strides real fast. And by the way, as a percentage of folks that are having to work these miserable jobs, surprise, surprise, once again, it's the black folks that have the worst end of the bargain. Coming at things from odd angles, folks, but often that's how you solve a problem that seems unsolvable.
Where it comes out to Americans working about 40 more days every year than our friends in Norway. Shout out to the possibly more well-rested Norwegians. Now, the rules and norms here are powerful. If getting ahead in your office...
Oh, yes, on this Juneteenth, a shout out to the Norwegians. Yeah, take some refining over the years.
...means that much or more work, well, so are the costs. Americans are burnt out. They're less productive than countries where people don't burn the midnight oil, as economist Juliet Schor explains.
With reduced work time, each hour typically becomes more productive. Norway and Denmark, the two European countries with the shortest average hours of work at about 1,380, have outsized productivity. The U.S. historically led the world in productivity and would likely do better now if its work time weren't so high.
Wait, so you're telling me this sucks and it doesn't work? Well, when we overwork, that's the efficiency argument. Revenues can even go up when you change it up. More time off also has other benefits that you almost don't need to explain, right? If you have free time, that could strengthen your leisure time, your time with your family, your community bonds. It could enrich people's lives and enables some people to potentially live longer. And the spike in well-being is measurable, as Schor points out. It serves communities and companies even with that productivity boost. And there's nothing automatic about this current high rate of work or the 5-day work week, which only came about when labor activists pushed it to create a weekend break. So tonight, our premise is not that a different labor model is probably right, or that we should suddenly already agree that 4 days is now the new perfect number of days to work. But rather, let's step back from the current era, from conventional wisdom, from hardened debates launched by people in partisan corners, and check in with that very expert I mentioned, because Professor Juliet Schor is here, and we want to hear these ideas with an open mind. As the late, great artist Mac Miller put it, all we want to do is free your mind. We don't see no lines. We don't color inside. And Juliet Schor joins us now. Welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
If people have an open mind to this, why would it be good to work less?
Ari Melber just needs to drop an embarrassing rap album and get it over with. He wants to so bad. And look, he knows it'll be bad. You know it'll be bad. I know it'll be bad. Not bad as in a cute way to say good, but actually not fun to listen to. But he needs to get it out of his system. Quit bothering us with rap lyrics. I do have a soft spot for a nerdy honky who says rap lyrics, but oh, the bit, it's tired. Although a fitting quote.
Well, as you said, for employees, the benefits are pretty clear. Big reductions in burnout. We're finding 68% of the people in the trials we're running have less burnout, less stress, more positive emotions, less anxiety. They're sleeping more, less conflict with families. I mean, you name it, across all the well-being indicators, people are so much happier with the 4-day week. I think the surprising thing is that the companies are happier too, because they're getting more, just as much or more productivity from people. They're finding it easier to fill positions. People stop quitting. These are all big problems facing American employers today.
And this is the news, but I want to do some history through the news. We talk about the purpose of this open mind perspective. We have something from 1937, New York Times, reporting that basically the 40-hour work week would come out of a new federal bill. The basic week as a maximum has been tentatively decided upon by the administration as a program for presentation in Congress early next week. A long time ago, but also reminds you that before then, there were other norms. What do you think is necessary for people to consider how to change this? Because
yeah, hold up. Before she answers, probably the very thing I'm about to ask, or go off on myself. Just think about that. At one point in history, there wasn't a precedent for setting a maximum number of hours that can be worked. Just mull that over. So often we think that's the way it is, so of course that's the way it must be. It must have been obvious to folks at the time. But think about all the annoying people who would have tried to say, oh, you're being lazy. Oh, you just don't have work ethic. Oh, you don't want to pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Yada, yada, yada. At some point, turns out that point was 1940, enough Americans got together and said there needs to be an amount which is considered enough. And that was determined to be 40 hours at the time. Now, since then, we had the female revolution in the workplace. Good. Women were theoretically given the same opportunity as men. I'm theoretically is doing a lot of work there, I know. But we had women join the workplace. And I've had as many lady coworkers and bosses as I've had men. Did the work week get cut in half? No. Did the work week get shortened by a quarter? No. all that extra labor was added to the market. And we were told, oh, but you still got to work just as hard. Well, think about this on like a tribal level. What is the point of a job? What is the point of this all? We're just trying to make sure that the bears don't eat us and that the rain doesn't freeze us to death in the night and that there is food to be eaten and medicine to be distributed. And that's it. We're not working because otherwise we wouldn't know what to do with our hands. No. That's why we invented the banjo. There's plenty we could be doing. So why are we working? It's just to get that stuff done. Why then do we have lathe operators and drywall installers? Well, because as we invent more new cool stuff, we require specialists. But we've automated so much of this. And there are so many of us doing it. And we spend a massive chunk of our lives doing this stuff. And in fact, the fact that Elon Musk flew in space pretty well demonstrates that we are doing more work than is necessary. And I am fine with that. What I am not fine with is us needing to. That's too much. And I ask you this, how much, don't answer it out loud, answer it just within your own head, how much of your work week, and bless you Rex Trek, you're free of this now, but how much of your work week is spent doing busy work, trying to look busy, trying to justify your employment? It's built-in waste, and it's a damn shame.
There's nothing magical about only a 2-day weekend anyway.
No, absolutely not. I do think, though, that the 4-day week has a certain momentum, and it has to do with the sort of structure of work and family in America today, because we've got so many households with dual earners, and the 2 days of a weekend are not enough. I mean, what we're hearing from people who are getting 3-day weekends is that they finally have enough time to get ready to go back to work on Monday. That Sunday night dread is gone. They have actually time for themselves, which is really key, because otherwise the weekend's just another 2 days of work, working in the family, doing stuff for other people. So this shift to a 4-day week rather than, say, just a gradual reduction. I mean, in Germany, they work only as many hours as would be a 4-day week, right, 8 hours. But they're going in 5 days. It's different there. But I think in the U.S., Friday is already starting to evolve into a different kind of day.
That's really interesting, because we're talking about this sort of shift in real time. The other part is everyone has lived through all of these tech changes. I mean, most people who are adults in the workplace right now are in a very different mode than 50 years ago with computing and now phones. But it hasn't delivered for people. So we've had several of those versions where you're told, oh, it's like the Jetsons, you're going to free up time, and you don't. And the AI revolution now is an open question on that.
Real quick, do you remember that joke from the Jetsons? That essentially killing it by talking about it in broad strokes. Like, George would clock into work, and then he would be shown doing a really easy job, and then he would go home and bitch about it. I was looking forward to that, man. He'd go and he'd press like a button, he'd be like, ugh. We should be working towards that. I'm not saying we should be there yet, but we should be closer to there than we are.
In literature, in the space that you're in, they talk about the Industrial Revolution paradox. Oh, we're going to automate, it'll save time. No, everyone's working harder than ever. Back in 1930, John Maynard Keynes said, technical improvements have been proceeding at a greater rate in the last decade than ever before. We're solving economic problems. Man will be faced with his real, permanent problem: how to use his freedom from pressing economic cares, how to occupy the leisure, what work there is still to be done will be as widely shared as possible. And he talks about then a 15-hour work week. Can you break down for us why these so-called tech breakthroughs aren't being delivered?
He predicted that before computers. Think about that. He was saying 15-hour work week's coming before we had a phone with 1,000 times the processing power of a craft that flew to the fucking moon. It's kind of criminal how we've been living our lives. Not technically, just morally.
Delivered to regular people?
In the United States especially, what happened post-World War II is the structure of incentives facing employers changed. A big part of it is health insurance paid by employers, which means every new employee has a big tax on them that the employer has to pay, which means they want to minimize the number of people they're hiring and increase their working hours. That's like a powerful sort of gravitational force in the U.S. economy, which made us diverge from Europe. You know, we saw those figures with the short working hours in Denmark, Norway, we can put in Germany, France, Netherlands, you name it. That's a big part of the reason why. The other key thing, structural dimension in the U.S. economy, is the growth of inequality. Because one of the things we see is that in more unequal countries, working hours tend to be higher. So we've got those two really powerful sort of economic forces that are keeping working hours high and which are preventing all that technological change from getting translated into shorter hours of work.
And big picture, what do you think is a good amount of time to work out of the week? I mean, does it have to be this much?
Definitely doesn't have to be this much. I mean, that's why we're seeing companies which are going from 40 hours statutory down to 32 with no reduction in pay, and they're happy about it. We only have a handful of companies out of the, almost 200 now that are in our trials that are saying, no, we're not going to keep on with this.
So just to give specifics, that I think, if not, I don't know which study she's talking about specifically. I do know that there was a study done in England of about the same amount of companies. By the way, England now experimenting with a UBI, fun fact, in two areas, including the northern parts. They're giving £1,600 a month to certain individuals, seeing how it goes. But yeah, that study was done, or a study under the same, methodology was done in England. And yes, that is, after 2 years, that's what they reported. They did not lose productivity. They paid the folks the same. They simply had them come in less. Hey, by the way, everybody wins there. If you have the folks come in less and you pay them the same, and you don't lose productivity, it's also a money saver for the company. Because the company doesn't have to keep as many lights on. They don't have to do as much air conditioning. They don't have to do as much maintenance with the wear and tear in their parking lot, etc., etc. Long term, yeah, it's an economic benefit to the company. An economic benefit to the employees. Yes, they're making the same amount of money. That's neat. They're also having to buy less gasoline or bus tickets or whatever they use to get in and out of work. They're having to plan work lunches less. Little things like that. It's like economic alchemy. You have the same pay going to folks. You're getting the same productivity, but both employer and employee end up with more money because you're being more efficient. And oh, by the way, you're missing less of your kids' ball games. Nothing but good. Nothing but good.
About like 20 hours.
Eventually. I mean, this is where Keynes was right, I think, which is that it's gradual. So you gradually move down and down. And as you do that, you're able to maintain your productivity because you've got technical change going on. You've got people getting smarter. You've got figuring out more efficiency. So I don't know that there's an end point here because people actually can do other wonderful, productive, and socially useful things in their time off.
How much has the pandemic disruptions fast-tracked this effort?
Everything. Totally changed everything. I mean, I wrote a book in 1992 called The Overworked American. The issue was totally dead before the pandemic, and suddenly, we talked about open mind, the conventional wisdom changed. Suddenly people think, yeah, why are we working 5 days? That law got put in 1940.
Yeah.
Couple of notes, because I don't think they're going to go there. Let's talk about how this comes from all kinds of angles. Thing number one, I remember showing my slip that said I was an essential worker, and for about 5 minutes I felt fancy. Till all my other friends turned up with those same slips. Suddenly I thought, oh, my radio job is maybe not quite as important as I thought it was. Turns out, it was all the poor folks that got those slips. We were the essential workers. And it was a surprise to us, because our whole lives, we were told we were less than. We were scum. We should feel bad for how much we make, on top of feeling bad because of not having any money. Two different things. Feeling bad because we can't afford stuff, and feeling bad because we don't get paid a certain amount. But then, we were essential. Well, it turns out that was us cows finding out we were in line at the slaughterhouse. Those essential workers, those folks that had to work during the pandemic, were told their whole lives that they were second-class citizens and deserved to be treated like that. And then they found out during the pandemic that the country could not exist if they didn't go to work. And you know what? We went to work. Risked our lives. A lot of us died. A disproportionate amount of those folks were black. Because the way this country is set up, a disproportionate amount of those jobs were held by black folks. So, in this moment where the country, yes, realized we don't have to be physically in work as much as we thought we did. And oh, by the way, now that my boss isn't breathing over my shoulder, literally, a lot of the busy work I've been doing is it's unnecessary. And in fact, it does nothing but drain me and distract from the real work. Not only was that discovered, but at the same time, the entire underclass of Americans started sticking up for their rights and doing things like unionizing. So she's going to address this certainly from the angle of the folks realizing that we were being overworked. But understand that at the same time, we realized that there was still much more racial disparity than we had thought existing in the country. And the people who were the least paid amongst all of us realized that they do have value after all. In fact, the country didn't need their bosses to come into work, but they sure needed them to come into work. And that, my friends, how alliances are formed.
Whereas before the pandemic, it just really, I couldn't get it onto the agenda. So pandemic really opened everybody's eyes.
How many hours a week do you work?
I have no idea.
Over 40.
No, definitely
Really?
not. No.
When you're writing a book or anything? Like when you're in peak mode?
Well, writing a book, I can't write that many hours a day. You get wiped out by, start early in the morning by 2, 3 o'clock.
This stuff is tiring, I feel.
All right, good try, Ari, but it's an awkward question to ask somebody. Kudos to her for having the guts of just say, no, I don't work 40 hours a week. Good. Good. Hell of an interesting thing to consider. Let's talk about it on the other side, where we will continue our Juneteenth roast. Neat. Are more equal. I started my own business because I got sick of it. Hell yes. And my employees always get paid first. I get paid last. Employees get paid first, then bills, then money has to get reinvested into the business. And if there's anything left, I get to eat, but it's mine. Hell yeah. Good egg, sir. Well done. Patrick Thibodeau. Let's go back up. The company that company merged with a company whose management was not in my city, so I started working from home. Still way too many hours, but no commute. Let me read this whole thing. I'm just going to read the end part, turns out. Then the company was bought by a bigger company with more resources, and my workday has become manageable. I'm still all for a 4-day work week, though. Hell yes. Are more equal, depending how you measure it. I work less than 40 hours a week, or I'm always working. Yeah, that's a thing that happens with bosses. At the level you're at, where you are aware of the order in which things get paid out, you're still doing a job. You're still doing something of value. It's got to get done. And the shitty thing that happens is that CEOs, like the people who get hired into a company that's already flourishing because they're the grandson of somebody that was insanely wealthy, those miserable pricks will then pretend to be doing what you're doing, when in reality, it's more or less daycare for 50-year-olds. And they will say that they're working all the time. But again, I can't stress enough, not you doing it, it's them pretending to be you. And I think the cure for that is to measure work done. Not how long. If you can get it done in 5 minutes, great. Awesome. Good. I don't want people spending their whole day toiling. They don't have to, but simply measure the work done. In your case, it sounds like the work done is going to be measured in company growth through clever management. So if you can cleverly manage fast, good. If it takes you 40, if it takes you 80, that sucks. But it's still good because you're providing. Are more equal. Sometimes I think herding cats is easier. Man, I was middle management I did own a company once, but it was like a construction company, so it not the same. But I was middle management once, and yes, herding cats is a great way to put it. Terrible, terrible job. If you can avoid it, don't do it. Dawned on me, there's no way this would happen for all essential workers. Hospital, EMS, police, grocery workers, etc. I could list them all. I think it will. Not only do I think it could happen, I think it will. Simply because they will insist. I've lived enough of that life to tell you that people have a finite amount of bullish they will take in their lives, until only a few people being loud and proud and angry about it is all it takes to set them all off. Oof. All right, help me out here. Who are we roasting? Any political figure. Somebody name a political figure. I'm going to roast him. Oh, and I'll read a wireless mic while we wait. Now they want to say nobody wants to work, but the truth is what it takes to keep that part-time job isn't worth what little it provides. Exactly. People need job security and a living wage. 100%. Also, 1 million Americans that were doing these kinds of jobs died doing these kinds of jobs. So there's a shortage. Biden. All right, Wicked Foxy Dragon has named Joe Biden to polish off our Juneteenth roast. Senile Dracula is honestly not somebody that I hate as much as I was planning on hating. He's sort of like if your touchy-feely uncle lost his Viagra prescription. It's great. I'm glad to see him yucking it up at a family reunion and not making things weird for once. Turns out he's a great guy when he's chill. I will say his cooler cousin, Dark Brandon, that's the guy you want to hang out with. Joe Biden is the uncle that'll offer you a sip of schnapps with a wink, even though nobody really wants schnapps. And Dark Brandon will say, "Hey kid, I left you something in your room," and there's like a fat joint tucked under your pillow. Wildly presumptuous and rad. Are more equal. I feel the same way. I don't hate Biden as much as I thought I would, and I want to. Yeah, that's the thing. My biggest criticism about Biden: give us something. Either let me hate you more or do more for us. Oh, God. He's Joe Biden is Advil when we needed morphine. Look, I'm grateful for it. But Christ. the people who wrote this prescription misread the situation badly. All right, I'm still feeling it. Oh, the Anticorpress. Hello, my friend. Tell you what, folks, give me one more. I got that venom in me. Give me someone I can tear into like a bag of Lay's. I'll rattle off some sassy things. We'll roast them. We'll put some sauce on it. Toe and Jack, good to see you. Hello. Oh, I've seen some of these comments and I'm cracking up. Terrified, absolutely terrified to take a whack at pronouncing. You know what I should have done is a poll. That probably would have made it easier, huh? AOC from Are More Equal. Okay. Am I impressed that she had a proper job before jumping into politics? Yes. Am I terrified that she has the bulbous eyes of a barn owl? Also, yes. Do her goggle glasses help? No. Is it fair to make fun of somebody's looks? Also, no. But I'm gonna. So AOC looks like everybody's bratty sister. And she sounds like everybody's whiny English teacher. AOC has the ability to be simultaneously shrill and correct, which is just maddening. Because then I gotta pitch policy she's talking about and try to filter it down to a tone that won't make dogs howl. Hello, Gray Sand Dragon. Boebert. Yes, indeed. Lauren Boebert is what a Klansman draws if he were trying to get into drawing hentai. Lauren Boebert is Kirkland brand Ava Braun. Lauren Boebert has done less work than most house cats I've met. Lauren Boebert is what you wake up next to when you got drunk thinking you were talking to, damn it, I forgot the Canadian singer, Celine Dion. Take another whack at that. Lauren Boebert is less reliable than a babysitter with a crack pipe visible on the passenger seat. Lauren Boebert is easily in Congress the person who is going to be voted most likely to smell like a truck stop bathroom. Truly cannot get enough. I think that's a solid roast of Boebert. Oh, just one more before we go. Let me roast something, and then I'll put a little sauce on it. Just one more before we wrap it up for Juneteenth. I think the Juneteenth roast is going to become a tradition here, if not a full-on barbecue. Oh, our more equal. Lauren Boebert believes Sarah Palin when she says she can see Russia from her house. Ha! Oh, God. And Lauren Boebert is Kirkland brand Sarah Palin, who herself is just Kirkland brand Jackie O. The double downgrade. Oh, my God. Gosar. Yeah. Paul Gosar is, if Mr. Smith Goes to Washington was directed by Uwe Boll. That's a little esoteric. Let me put a little sauce on it. Paul Gosar is the person who inspires, frankly, an underserved class of Americans. He is the person that makes meth addicts believe they can achieve their dreams, assuming their dreams are to spread conspiracy theories in Washington. Well, I can't stress this enough, not giving up meth. Love it. Oh, my God. Well, folks, this has been a delightful stream. I'm real happy to be back. Thank you for the wonderful comments you left when I was out. I don't even know how to handle the niceness, honestly. I just got to tell you I'm grateful. To fill you in, wasn't that bad. I had some family things I had to take care of. Got a little sister who's working on baby number 2 right now, and I'm apparently learning that deep in my soul, I'm a worried old maid who wildly overreacts to the tiniest things. But everybody's fine, baby's fine, sister's fine, uncle's fine. After working on the case of scotch, I will see you tomorrow for Two for Tuesday. Delighted to have you here today. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for what you can do. See you next time.